Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're tuning in from around the world. We are live on Facebook and Instagram for the first time here on Swalif, and I've been looking forward to this episode for a long time because it's something that's very near and dear to my heart, the subject, entrepreneurship, a man like myself trying to solve big problems, spending a lot of hours finding a solution that's never to be found. And today I'm with a man who knows a lot about that. I'm with Mr. Ahmad Ashkar. Good afternoon for you in sunny LA, or is it good morning? Which one is it?
It's still good. It's still good morning. Ahlan wa sahlan bin jamia. What's up, everybody? Pleasure to be with you.
Likewise, it's great to have you. We postponed this from last week, but we are finally here. And let's get straight to it because I know that only an hour is not enough. So before we get into, the deep thickness of the subject of entrepreneurship and philanthropy and why it's important, tell me how you got mixed up in all of this. You have less than a minute. Go.
I got one word for you. I'm Palestinian. All right. So we're born entrepreneurs, where if you look at like the things that define entrepreneurship, resilience, resourcefulness, creativity, being Arab, right? Help. Sometimes we forget we were the forefathers of innovation. And I felt like I started on the corporate track in finance and banking. And then one problem that I identified to the next, I knew that I had to be a problem solver, and I pursued my path of entrepreneurship.
Are you ever lost finding the next problem that you're going to solve?
No, if it's one thing we are not short of as a society, and this is globally, not just in the Arab world, is problems. There's so many problems. And unfortunately, like a lot of the entrepreneurs that we train, so I'm the CEO and founder of the Hult Prize Foundation, as well as the founder of Falafel Inc. And I sit on the board of so many different companies, all of which are looking at advancing youth. And problems are honestly a dime a dozen. And it's the way that you look to deconstruct those problems that makes the difference between an entrepreneurial opportunity and everything else.
So tell me how the Hult Prize Foundation came about. You're CEO and founder, and did it come because of a network that you have? Was it a passion project? Do you feel like not enough is being done for the youth? I could ask
look,
how it came about.
I could give you 100 reasons why, but they would all probably be made up. The truth is that, like any good entrepreneur, I stumbled into a problem. And the problem was simple. So the financial markets crashed. I was a finance guru, really good at investment banking. And, I speak Arabic, I'm Muslim. I went to Catholic school, right? I grew up in Kansas, so I'm like somewhat of a redneck hillbilly. And then, I speak Islam and finance. So I was very active on the Sharia compliant financing scene. Spent a lot of time, bro, in Doha because of my role in Islamic finance. And when the financial markets fell out in 2008, 2009, I went back to business school. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I realized that young people didn't have a choice. They were either forced to go down this path of like for-profit, evil enterprise, or nonprofit charity work, help liberate Palestine, help feed the poor, help feed the hungry. And just being selfish, I was like, no, I want to do both. I want to make money while changing the world, not go make money and then donate money to change the world. I want to do it at the same time. So I started looking for a job and I couldn't find it. So then I was like, oh my God, what a segment to start sparking entrepreneurship in. So we launched the Hult Prize, the first $1 million startup prize to encourage, inspire young people from around the world to create these, what was in my mind, like the gold rush of the 21st century, these businesses that solve social challenges while making money, not and making money, while making money. And that was the key distinction with the Hult Prize. And I've grown it to the largest organization in the world that activates youth, trains youth, and we're now the worldwide leader in impact education. So we're excited about that. And, you know, it's been 12 years, but it feels like just 12 days since I first had the idea for our company.
It doesn't sound like one thing that myself being involved locally in the startup scene, whether it's giving talks about entrepreneurship or shows or being, you know, part of the community of trying to find solutions to problems within the society and in the community, we're always told, or the, you know, you have to have a strategy, your big idea, and then you have to think about it strategically, and there's almost like a playbook that you have to follow nowadays when it comes to being an entrepreneur. But I'm not like that either. You know, I just go in head first. And it doesn't sound like you were someone who sat down in a dark room and planned and plotted a strategy of attack. You were like, okay, I'm going to talk to this guy. You had a big idea and you just went for it. Is that the first thing that comes to mind when you're looking, you know, when you're talking to entrepreneurs, trying to get them to?
Yeah, I mean, look, every entrepreneur is different. And every problem that needs to be solved is different. But one common thread that I tell everybody out there listening today, dream big. It's very important, but start small. Okay, dream big, but start small, because sometimes, like, for example, right, if you're like free Palestinian, which that's been the hottest, like, okay, that's a great dream, right? But we're not going to get there overnight. So you have to start with the things that you can do as an individual. And those are the things we really like to teach our entrepreneurs, is that, first of all, change doesn't start on the outside, it starts on the inside. So while this idea is extrinsic of whatever it is your business is going to be, the actions are very much intrinsic, and they have to be taken on an individual level first. And that's what we teach, especially in the Arab world. So we run the largest educational program in the Middle East for teaching soft skills for youth. And we do that in a number of ways. Some is paid, some is through the $1 million Hult Prize competition, which we run every single year in partnership with the UN. But the common denominator is our first step is not teach or fund as an entrepreneurial education. Our step one is inspire. Because we have people in our region, the youth in the Arab world, they are not interested, not just in starting their own company, they don't have the internal motivation to go. And we think at the Hult Prize Foundation that this is the most critical component of activating an entrepreneurship ecosystem. I have to get you to believe that you're even capable of being an entrepreneurship. Right? And we have to tear down all those walls that have been established on purpose with intent by, again, we won't name them by name, but the leaders of our institutions whose benefit is not a robust youth entrepreneurial ecosystem, but status quo. From Saudi to Palestine to Syria to Urdun, right? You name your Arab country, the status quo benefits those who govern. And that's what the job of the Hult Prize is, to tell our youth community, no, you have the ability to influence the outcome of your life, period. You want to be a millionaire? You can. You want to help improve the lives of 1 million people? You can. And that's why step one is all about that inspiration. And again, we want them to dream big, but most importantly, it's about starting small.
That's one thing you're saying, that, and it's even for me with my startup and where I'm going, there are so many hurdles, you know, and it's starting small is one thing, but there is just the legality for like forming a business or understanding what laws are in place to allow you, whether this business will work in this country or in this place or in this location. There's so many things that get in the way of of setting up a business. But at the same time, there isn't enough being said, or when you're looking for these answers, there is no two-way conversation between the regulator or the authority that is,
bro,
saying,
Hamid,
let's.
Let me break this down to you with an Islamic analogies.
Okay, let's go.
In the Arab world. Okay. So
I
grew up in Kansas, right?
Okay.
And I learned early to defend my culture as a Palestinian American, to defend my faith. I went to Catholic school, and people used to ask me, what does it mean to be Muslim? Now, your average person, if you ask, what does it mean to be Muslim? What do they say? They say the first thing, well, you can't eat pork. That's always what they say first. Then they say, you can't drink. You can't smoke. You can't.
And then they say, you have to pray 5 times a day. Yeah. That was me when I was a kid too.
All these restrictions, right? You have to fast, 30, what? And I always tell people, you're doing a really bad job selling our religion, because the reality is the only thing you need to be a Muslim is to say one thing, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. Done. So I look at business and startups in the same fashion, right? And, astaghfirullah for all of you. Okay, I'm not comparing the religion to business, but what I'm saying is let's not look at all the restrictions, because if we look at the restrictions, we'll never start. And I rather tell somebody who's thinking about entrepreneurship when they say, what does it take to be an entrepreneur? Not you have to go legal, not you're going to get sued, not you're never going to raise money, no, you're going to have a problem in competition, no, you have a professor and an Arab job. It doesn't work. I say you have to have a really good idea which solves a really good problem, and you have to have it in you to do whatever it takes to solve that problem. And if you think about it that way, the question on what's the restrictions and what is the possibilities will encourage more people naturally. And I've seen it. Look, we have one of our great startups in Jordan, which is doing crowd logistics. And for 6 or 7 months, they complained to me about the law and the regulation, and they don't have money for technology. And I got very, very tough with them one day. And I said, listen, do you have a cell phone? Yes. Do you have WhatsApp? Yes. Do you have Facebook? Yes. Pick up the phone and start booking business, right? And within 30 days, their perspective changed. And they went from, here's a million reasons why we can't start, to here's a million reasons why once we start, we're going to be successful. And that's a company called Amtia. I'm sure Anas is out there probably listening, and Hajar. And they're effectively taking luggage space that's unused in international travel and filling it up with packages, candies, electronics, so that they could take your product in Qatar and maybe send it to the US or vice versa in that unused baggage space. And it's 75% cheaper. They've got a network of travelers, and it's an amazing business. Was there a regulation or rule for that business? No. Could they get in trouble later? Probably they will, but we're gonna fight the good fight to make sure that we can keep them up and running. And if not, they'll just leave Jordan. And entrepreneurs have to do what they have to do. So
that's one thing. It's the second part of today's episode is philanthropy. And for me, it's finding that big problem, like you said, with this startup, that's providing another way of good transportation of goods at I'm guessing in affordable rates, because international freights are ridiculously expensive. Trying to buy stuff, over here and import a lot of goods here is it costs a pretty penny. But at the same time, when you talk about inspiring and looking at the positive, and that's a mindset that as an entrepreneur, if you don't have early, you're gonna there's gonna be a lot of stuff thrown at you, and survival is key, definitely. But when it comes to a point where you're saying to someone, inspire, but there is a sense of, self against where you are, you're positioned in a society with rules, restrictions, diversity, hope, good business ecosystem, no good business ecosystem, whatever it is, that individual faces different challenges from one individual to the next, even though they're in the same society. And then when you get to a point where it's like, this is my big solution and this is how it adds value, it's still profitable. So how are you talking to people about adding value to the society and giving opportunities? And it sounds a bit too salesy sometimes as an entrepreneur when they're like, this is how much we're going to add value, we're going to create jobs, we're going to do this. But is it really telling people that this is what's good for the society, or are you just using words as an entrepreneur to sell your idea and cash in on that big, Series A financing or whatever
Yeah,
stage you're in?
maybe a decade ago that was possible, but remember, Hamid, we live today in the most interconnected generation of our time.
Yes.
We have not the 60-minute news cycle, not the 24-hour news cycle. We have the 60-second news cycle.
Yeah.
So one of the things that it's very critical for today's entrepreneurs to be aware of is that the mission of your company and that impact, you need to put it at the center. And that's the way we make sure that startups that we invest in are always built in a way that has impact first. And we draw a circle, right? And if you think about that as being impact centered, and then we draw another circle and we call that being profit minded, right? So while impact governs our every move, so does profit, because we want to be sustainable. We don't want to live on charity, etc. And then our third circle is being market driven. And effectively what that comes down to is solving a real problem. Now, there's a way to test. And the way to test is to ask yourself one question. Who wins when I'm successful, when I win, right? And society, right, environment, or government needs to show up, and you need to answer yes to one of those. And then you become what we call an ESG investment. And if you look at where, again, I'll put my finance hat on, where investment dollars are going, investment dollars are now chasing this environmental, social, government impact space. And I'm not selling you a pipe dream here. Maybe a decade ago I was, but one of the most well-known money managers in the world in BlackRock, right? And if you look at their latest annual report, their entire senior level management team and board said we're going completely ESG. So you follow the money, and you'll see that this idea of, like, we call it the KC shuffle in Kansas City, where you look left, you go right, and say you're doing one thing, but actually do another. Those days are done. And we're entering a whole new era of enterprise, where, in the next decade, most of the old uncles, the lamos, they won't recognize the.
That's what's happening now. It's music to my ears, baby.
When people want to argue with me about it, I'm like, just wait.
Exactly. That's what it is.
It's not. My dad always told me, he said it's not about timing. It's just about time. You just got to be cool. You just got to wait.
That's I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna use that quote from your dad.
It's legend.
Me to just be patient, and that is, there's only so much you could take, man. I do a lot, which is to keep myself sane, but there are opportunities and solutions that just make sense, and it is a matter of time before you start seeing, like, the world we live in today. It's going a different direction, and as you said, like, you're in California, I'm in Doha, we're doing this thing. It's crazy, the amount of information, the amount of connectivity, the networking that you can do, and that you can have.
You got to look at it. There are problems, but we live in an era where the solutions are usually a combination of, like, creativity and financing. But there's enough creativity in the world, and there's enough financing in the world to do anything. So it's really a matter of imagination. And wallahi al-azim, I mean, to all of you out there listening, I believe you have one problem, and that problem is in imagination. That's it. if we fix that,
bombarded. I mean, this is one thing. I don't want to sound like a negative Nancy, but you're always, everything, especially with Instagram. I have a gripe with that platform, as amazing as it is, but everything's coming at you visually, and everything's beautiful on Instagram, and it's just instant likes, numbers. Everyone loves it, and it's just kind of, I feel it sometimes when I go to schools or when I give talks, is the next generation has got, like, we didn't have that, growing up in my school. We didn't have Instagram, and now with what that, it just adds, like, there's this burden always constantly in a room when I'm sitting there going, okay, in the next 10 years, these guys are going to be my employees, or going to be people who are driving some kind of community effort or case. And you see that in their little world, it's a bit weird because of this Instagram. And
well, you have to adapt to it. And that's what we're not doing in the Arab world. Like we're trying to, it's like this. And my dad immigrated to the US in New York. So he became a big Knicks fan, big NBA basketball fan, And a lot of the analogies he gave us, typical, I'm from a village with no roads from Palestine, okay? And he always told me, he said to me, son, you see these NBA coaches? He said the best ones are the ones that build their playbooks around their teams. I mean, just so simple, right? My dad, he's not a business guy, but it's logical. Like, you can't be a dictator of a company and come build your business based on what you think is the best. You look around you. If you've got 1,000 kids that love using Instagram, then you better damn well build a business.
Tap into that, of course.
Exactly. And we're so backwards in the Middle East because the guys on top rarely have come from the bottom. And that's what makes America so great, is that when we say America is the land of opportunity, it is. And I will argue to death with anybody who says otherwise, because here you go from the bottom as a dishwasher to the top. How many Palestinians that I know that are mentors of mine today started in restaurants, they started washing cars, they started with nothing, today are billionaires, if not 100 millionaires. I'm going to see one later today. He's been in America 40 years, started with zero. How many stories do we hear like that in our region, right? Very, very few.
I think that the story from that comes from the region that's exported is when he went to America. That's how it starts.
Yeah, it's like, and
I'm sorry. I know that it might sound like, I understand now what you mean when you say inspiring, but you have to, whatever's happening in the region, we've seen what it can do. When people are talking, when it's giving a voice to oppressed people, when they have an expression, when they're allowed, or if they just got to a point where it was like, forget it, I'm doing it, something's happening. And that's like technology, because before any of these platforms existed, this was a completely different landscape.
Bro, you went the tech route. For me, it's very simple. Actually, it's just Emet. It's just hope.
Do you think it's
right?
hope?
I do, because it's hope and the ability to imagine yourself in a better tomorrow is all we need as people to be successful entrepreneurs, to be successful workers, when you lose that Ahmad, bro, you have nothing.
I understand, but let me ask you this then. If you're saying, I understand that that's a pinnacle, saying it's, it's a foundation, you have that hope and have, completely with it. But do you not believe that with the tech boom in the last 20 years or so, or from the digital media area, which is still kind of where we're figuring it out, I suppose, we're in the middle of it. Do you not think that these platforms and this access to this kind of mass news, mass information, access, communication, global fingertip information accessibility, do you not think that had a huge role in changing how the dynamic in most communities is? Do you not think that technology has changed how people...
I think technology has desensitized us. I'm a low tech guy, just to to tell you. I see. I'll give you an example. So we ran the Hult Prize Startup Challenge this year. It was on food. My wish that was somebody would come out of the region and take arak and build it into $1 billion business, or mensef, or hummus. How could I run the largest startup program in the world, where I have probably 100,000 youth coming out of the Arab?
I'll tell you, I have numbers, right?
Okay.
21 countries and 2,000 brick and mortar university programs. And I want to talk to you about what drove you into education. But you're in 121 countries, and I met the people and I met some of the groups here in the Hult Prize in the Qatar chapter, and some of their ideas were pretty cool. But one thing, like you're saying now, is it's like they're also programmed into thinking of what the solution that they're consuming. You know what I mean? Like, you created something called Falafel Inc. Where are we gonna go with that? You went with falafel.
I'm a fan. Like, I was dreaming of like a hummus manufacturer that would take hummus global. You know, I got zero, because this damn internet has, like, everybody wants to be the next like technological revolution, blockbuster, this. And for me, I love the low tech, right? Take our culture. I promise to anyone out there and anyone you run into, if you take our culture, you can build $1 billion business out of every component, right? The coffee is $1 billion industry, right? Our food, pick, sumac, za'atar, jmeed. I mean, there's a famous place in DC that does, it's called karak and kak, and it's great. And it was started by 2 engineers, right? And I'm sure they took a bunch of grief from their families who said, "Oh, you're gonna open, a karak place. We sent you to MIT, but this is, we have to desensitize
parents that you want to go in and do entertainment and produce comedy and write comedy stories, comedic stories.
I should be interviewing you. I mean, you're the bigger inspiration to the.
Dude, I would love to keep talking about myself, but I want to move from that and just go to Falafel Inc, because that is something that you did, and now it's it's one of the most prominent Arab flavors, or known in DC, I believe it is. Or where did you start it? You started in Georgia. Oh, there you go. Look, the guy's never misses an opportunity.
Always never miss an opportunity to bread. So we launched in DC, and now we're global. So I'm actually in LA. We just opened a store in LA, which is super cool because we're now coast to coast. We've got stores in Mexico City. We're international. And problem solving. Remember what I said to start, right? It's like, I was in New York because I was an investment banker. I went to a falafel shop, and the guy at the counter asked me if I wanted Israeli salad on it. And I was like, what?
Excuse me?
Yeah. Not because of anything else. Look, I'm good. I mean, just people that know me, like, I'm a pretty liberal Palestinian. I have Israeli friends, and I am of course anti the right wing Israeli government, like most other Americans, frankly speaking. But it wasn't more like, it wasn't. I was shocked. I was like, "What did you say?" And they were like, "Israeli salad." And I was like, what the bleep is Israeli salad? And the guy shows me, this salata Falastiniya, which is every Mediterranean Arab, it's cucumber, tomato, olive oil, lemon juice, the topping for the falafel. Yeah, like similar. Everybody's got it. The Lebanese have it, the Palestinians have it. But certainly in a million years, I never would have thought that this product was going to be called an Israeli product. So in my mind, that was problem number one. I said, and I didn't, this is my optimism. I didn't say, the typical Arab talk. I said, how big of a failure is this on my people, right? On us, that we didn't take our product and develop a brand name, commercial name for it. It's no one else's fault. that we're
I
not
completely
proud,
agree.
that we're not
I'm with
proud.
you on that from a Qatari perspective. Growing up abroad and meeting, I've been very fortunate to have a diverse upbringing because of my parents. My dad studies his journey took us, and when I come growing up, no one had a clue what Qatar was. And then we won the bid of the World Cup in 2010, and still people didn't know what Qatar was. And it's 2015, and I'm going on stage and I have a YouTube channel, and still they don't know what Qatari culture is. And I was saying, like, how do you expect them to know if you're not saying anything about it? Where is your part? If you're not saying this is Qatar,
Exactly.
this is what Qatar looks like, this is what Qatari culture is, this is what Qatari belief is, this is where Qataris come from, this is the Qatari history, this is how the place was, came to be. If you're not saying that, if there's no content or business or something else that's spreading your brand or your name or your identity, how do you expect people to know anything about it? And
Bingo.
it's
Bingo.
just like,
so just
boom.
to give you an idea. So that was my first, like, we call these insights. Like, these are things that just bug you. That bugged me for years, right? Then it was for me the price points of falafel, which in America is like crazy. Like you're like
Delicacy,
eating a
isn't it?
filet
Though?
mignon.
Like
It's so expensive.
is it a delicacy? Is it like this foreign thing? Is it why it's so expensive?
Yeah. So like probably 6 or 7 years later from that point, I started the first Falafel Inc. And honestly, I priced it very aggressively. I built an impact model. We feed refugees, we hire refugees, and we committed to a product that was top notch. And alhamdulillah, we fed over 1 million refugees now. We're in, cities around the world, and we're all vegan, all vegetarian, almost all vegan. And we're providing college students with a very affordable and healthy product. And we're promoting the falafel and hummus as a Palestinian product, which, again, if you're a different kind of Arab that thinks that falafel is yours, that was okay with me too. Then just go open your own falafel shop. It's my store, like it's my brand, and I get to call it whatever I want.
Exactly. At what point did, along your journey, did youth empowerment and education play a big role for you? Because you are, not only is it, I mean, yes, it's coming across in everything that you do, and it's empowering refugees or creating and consulting on accelerator programs for governments, for NGOs, for, why is education and youth empowerment for you such an important thing? Like, when did you, at what moment in your life was it where, like, this has to stop, I need to do something about this, and you just went for it?
Yeah, probably since the day I was born. Okay, because as a Palestinian, we're from a small village, it's called Seda, and it's the major city is Tulkarem, that's close by, but the Qura where Dar al-Ashkar is from Seda. And I spent most of my childhood back and forth between Palestine and the US, and then of course all my summers. And I could see at a very early age the difference between us as the American kids, and my family and the local populations of Palestine. And my dad always said to me, yeah, Ibni, my son, see how important education is, and see how important the ability to be able to dream for yourself allows you to become somebody. And that was always in me from day one. And I always tell my team, and we have a couple hundred people work for Hult Prize around the world, never underestimate the power of believing in somebody. And that's why I'm all about youth empowerment education, because I know what can happen by simply me telling somebody within the Hult Prize community, yes, you deserve to be here. Yes, you are good enough. Yes, you are going to change the world. I don't have to do anything more then get a human to believe in themselves, and then they can do the rest. But that also shows you how messed up our society is, that we've created. And this is,
I see. I was resisting the joke,
I'll say it,
but
I'll
it
say
is.
it.
We're so like
How
someone.
could,
We didn't hug them enough when they were younger. Like, just tell them that
no,
they
bro,
can. Dude, I
it's
grew up.
true.
Same thing for you. I grew up in Ireland, and I went to a Christian brother school, being Muslim, and that had its own set of challenges. But even when we came back to Qatar, or when it was in America, or whatever, at one point, if you asked a question within the learning environment in a school, whether, and this was something, it wasn't just to the Arab world, from my experience, whether it was in that school or in a school in Qatar, if you asked a question and it seemed like you were, trying to cause a problem, or just for the sake of asking a question because you genuinely didn't know and you wanted the answer from the teacher, you were just told not to ask questions. Like, it was in you. It was like, if you don't get it, you don't get it, and you shouldn't be asking questions. This is just the way it is. Don't ask questions. Yeah. Don't question the method. And it's like, how are we supposed to?
This is a form of abuse. This is abuse, and it's not on accident. So again, we don't want to take this conversation to the next level. Okay, but this let me give you an example. The Tojihi, the worst invention of the high school placement examination.
Yeah, it's just
dictatorship 101. I'm going to tell you, right, what the most important things are that you should be. Okay, awesome. And then I subscribe to those as a population. I was always shocked in Jordan when, like, our cousins would put their Tojihi scores and stuff out. And like one of my aunties would be like, yee, Binti, she's gonna go to law school. She did so bad on her Tojihi, she's relegated to being a lawyer. I used to be like,
that's
what?
new. And I've heard a lot of Arab.
Like, the world is ending because you think. So like, if I was gonna be like like a dictator, like, I'd be like, yo, honestly, like, if you're gonna go to law, you're the laughing stock of the society. Of course. Why would I want anybody? So what I'm left with is a bunch of like 50-60% average scores on the Tojihi, all in law school, all in creative, all in media and journalism. And I'm left with like all the smart kids that think they have to go be engineers and doctors, so that I don't have this ability to think freely and build my society and build entrepreneurs. And it's like, we need to like wake up and like.
Yeah, I bring that up because I say that now because right now, in the moment that we're living in today, this is what social media and tech brought us. Because now, one of the biggest problems is the kids are not paying attention in class because you didn't change the methods for this new generation. They access their information. You can't go into a room and tell someone, oh, this is the way to learn. And then they go on a phone in their pocket and then they can get the answer from 3,000 other sources. And
this is, again, psychological abuse.
In one of my math exams, right? I was deducted 3 marks from a question for not showing my work. And I still remember to this day going to the teacher and saying, what's the, I know how I got to the answer. I didn't cheat. Everything's there. I took away these 2 steps because it was just, I don't want to do it, but we got there in the end. I know the method. No, you're not getting those 3 marks. And it's just like,
we must systematically, and for all of those educators out there listening, not just rethink, reinvent education, training, what it means to actually have a job. Why can't, like, I have young women in our Arab offices in their early 20s that I have in leadership positions. And the hardest part is not convincing like my org, it's convincing them that they're like, wait, me? You want me to take that meeting? I'm not allowed to do that. And I'm like, who told you you're not? I'm the boss. And I'm like, Like, I'm telling you, you can. And they're like, whoa. So yeah, we've got some work to do there. But look, man, I'm very hopeful. We are more connected today than we ever have. Organizations like the Hult Prize are building leaders that the world, at least in our region, has never seen before. And we're empowering them with the confidence, with the actual substantive knowledge, and then the network to, you know, make shit happen. And that's the truth. And we're excited about that.
There's a little, there's a little politician in you there, but I don't want to go into that.
That's for a decade from now. You know, I'm trying to stay alive, bro.
Not nowadays. Not right now.
Soon enough.
But this is the thing. If I had to ask you now, the betterment of society definitely comes from the next generation having access to information, the ability to believe in themselves and an idea. They feel like they can identify themselves within the society there, and they're not secluded. And that's something that you're doing across the board, whether it's with Hult Prize, whether it's with Falafel Inc. and supporting refugees, and whether it's with UN or being on, I can read it out here, this amount of accolades, like top 100 most powerful Arabs in youth empowerment from Gulf Business, right? That I can feel your head just growing now. You know,
yeah, you have to read them all.
Right? Also serve as advisor to Economic Development Department of George Mason University, guest lecturer at MIT, Sloan, AUB, and the Hult International Business School. I mean, you're doing a lot in the field of education, and you're someone who's now saying to me in the same breath that we have to reinvent education. So it seems like you've got a lot on your plate. How do you feel entrepreneurship builds societies? What is the key thing that allows entrepreneurs to build a safer, better, more inclusive society?
Safer, better, more inclusive. I mean, you know, I couldn't have said it better. But let's unload this question. The first part is reinventing education. What's made the Hult Prize so good at what we do is because I'm somewhere in between, like, you know, a pure capitalist and a socialist. Okay. So I've got the best of, I'm like a redneck and a New York like shark at the same time. You know, I'm liberal and I'm conservative. I mean, literally, it's my DNA. So I've gone in and I've not said we need to replace the current educational system. We need to supplement. We need to work together. Okay. Because it's not all broken. It's just somewhat broken. And in fact, most institutions know that their educational content and the delivery of that content is broken. They recognize that. But the thing about the academic world is that they're like the Titanic ship, right? Everybody knows the story of the Titanic and how it sunk. It's not like they didn't see the iceberg. They saw it. They just couldn't steer the ship because it was so big. Most institutions are that way. So when the Hult Prize comes knocking on the door, we say to them, look, do everything you're currently doing. I will come to you and I will supplement the education and we will work together. And oftentimes they end up writing us a check, or the government, the minister of education will write me a check and say, hey, you know, come in and train 10,000 or 100,000 youth in this idea to think bigger and think creatively. Now, why does the government have a dog in this fight? I'm going to tell you. Entrepreneurship has not only the possibility to create multimillionaires as individuals, it is the only solution to keep economies viable that suffer from crises that restrict us from our basic human rights, right? Things like access to electricity, security, housing, freedom, right? Shelter. These are
food for one.
These are mega costs that governments have to take on, because let's be realistic. I don't care what government you are. Your basic responsibility is to look after your people and provide them basic human rights. That's your job. And that can be very, very expensive if you're the government. But the entrepreneurial sector in country can not only do it cheaper, quicker, faster, and better, but they can remove the allocation from the government's cost base. And we shift it to the private capital markets, which then allow not only the government to be able to bypass these expenses, but they're able to provide for their people in a much more efficient manner. And, you know, some people out there might say, oh, you can't make money delivering basic human rights. What are you talking about? One of every $5 in today's marketplace, one out of every 5 is a impact dollar. So don't talk to me about, you know, this is not possible. It is. And there's a lot of companies in the world that are making fortunes investing in companies that are delivering as their product and service basic human rights. So that's how those two universes are connected.
Right. Before we start, let me just quick. We've got one question that came in from Facebook. So before we start there, I want to just ask you one question because about social entrepreneurship, and this is something that you said it could create. You know, it helps governments, it helps society, but at some point there's going to be, you know, like you with Falafel Inc, you're going international, and I'm assuming that international growth is leveraging partnerships, international partnership relations and sectors, or, you know, also ease of business, being able to take a franchise from one country to the next and easily set it up with all the, you know, regulations of that country. At what point, as an entrepreneur, do you have to start thinking about leveraging your network and making sure that, you know, you're supported not only from your in-country value, but also, I mean, for me, for example, for anyone who's watching this in Qatar, you're talking about how you can grow your business in country. You built something in Qatar, let's say, for example, and now it's about growing it, and you want to go and access, you know, you want to open up the idea somewhere else or partner with different service providers around the world. Do you see that happening between Qatar American or US and Qatari collaborations in business from entrepreneurs and private sector?
No,
because government is something that has been ongoing for a long time, and we can't,
yeah,
you know, I don't
know what's
going on, so I don't want to talk about that. But as an entrepreneur who someone wants to say, I want to make it successful and I want to make, you know, a 3.5 billion valuation, whatever you want to, you know, all that whole world, that can't be made possible without international, you know, leveraging your product internationally with your network. So
first things first, yeah, let's just talk about like fundamentals of life in business. Your network is everything. Okay. And your network needs to be in place a lot sooner than your so your network needs to be in place much earlier than when you actually need it. And people don't understand that. Some people think like, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to, you know, build a business, and then based on the requirements of that business, I need to go network to find a solution. That's not happening with the best entrepreneurs. The best entrepreneurs have that network in place before the idea even germinates into a business. So I'll give you an example. I made the decision to go to Hult International Business School much earlier than I launched my actual businesses, which benefited from the network that I would go on to make as a entrepreneur. I literally found myself in 2008 devastated by the collapse of the financial market in the United States. And I was a 7-figure earner as a Wall Street finance American guru. I knew 2 markets, Arab and American. both markets collapsed within 18 months of one another, right? From 2008 until then, summer of 2009. I found myself so empty, and I made a commitment to myself. I said, I don't know anyone else in the world besides Arabs and Americans. I will never put myself in this position again. So I picked a business school, not like Harvard or Stanford or anywhere else. I picked one that I felt would match with my ability to network in the future. So I literally went down and I said on the FT rankings or whatever, which business school has the most international students? Hult, ISADE, INSEAD, right? IE. Those were the four options. And I was like, I'm going to go to one of those four because I knew that I wanted this international network, even though I didn't know what it was going to be for. That same network helped me build the Hult Prize, and we built Falafel Inc. with it. So the lesson I can give people, don't call me when you need something. Call me to wish me a happy birthday. Call me to wish me a congratulations on an achievement. Because if you call me when you need something, I likely won't give it to you because that's not how networking works. You have to know the right people for when the opportunity or the problem presents itself. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that helps a lot. I mean, your network is your net worth, isn't it? That's what they.
That's what they say, and it's true.
Yeah, that's how it's said. Right. We have a question from a budding entrepreneur on Instagram. Salah, I have an innovation which is to make fishbone supplements. I've studied the projects in all respects and found out that it is successful. Do you support? So yeah, okay. How can people? He's asking for funding here. Everyone wants money, even me. Let's go. You gonna give me some money, Ahmed?
Yeah, I would say, look, off the bat, again, I want to encourage all entrepreneurs. But the way I respond to ideas is I ask one question with one follow-up. My first question is, what's the problem that your business or startup solves? Okay, so then I can actually say, well, this fishbone supplement, is that going to be the best solution to the problem? Because that's what I'm looking for. The second is, who wins when you are successful? Is it, I actually want to know, right? Is it the government of the country you live in? Is it the academic sector? Is it the nutritional sector? Is it the environment because something's not going to be made in a certain way, right? So off the get, I don't know that a fishbone supplement is solving. I'm trying to think. You're probably solving some nutrition problem, and then I might ask you like, well, does opening Falafel Inc. solve it better? And then I always invest in the best solution or most creative solution to that problem that I'm really excited about. Simple, right?
Yeah, very simple.
95% of startups fail because they solve the wrong problem or a problem that doesn't exist or a problem that they're the only ones who care about.
Yeah. If you have, said that about if you could have the best idea ever, but if you don't know how to sell it, it'll stay in your drawer.
Well, no one cares. Like, I don't care that you have the idea that you think is great. I don't even care about my idea if I think it's great. Like I'm gonna give you this is a good method that I got, a good analogy. I was talking to the chairman of one of the largest publicly traded companies. They wanted to come buy Falafel Inc. for big, I mean, crazy money that probably sometimes I wish I took. Okay. So,
you know the feeling.
Yeah. No, alhamdulillah. So he came to my store and I said, you want to go to the store? He wasn't really that excited. And I was like, come on, let's go. Finally, I get him to the store. And then I bring him a falafel and I'm like, hey, I want you to try my falafel. It's the best falafel in America. It's really authentic. You know what he said to me?
What's
yes.
Falafel?
Yes. No, of course. He knew what he said. He refused to try it.
Wow.
And they had already made me a written offer.
Wow.
And I didn't understand. And do you know what he said to me? He said, Ahmed, what kind of chairman would I be if I tried your product and I didn't like it? And I said, what do you mean? He said, this deal is done and you've got 5-star reviews. And if you go to my original Falafel Inc. in Georgetown, Washington, D.C., it's been open for 4 years. It has a perfect 5-star Yelp rating. And it did at the time when he came. And he said, your store is perfect because the market says so. If I take a bite of this falafel and I don't like it, I will force you to change the flavor profile of the falafel, because what kind of chairman would I be if I am selling a product I don't like? So if it's okay with you, I'll pass on trying the falafel.
I still wouldn't take that money. I think you need to eat my stuff. Give me the
Oh, come on.
Let me know what's going on. You just saw a good review. You saw a good opportunity.
This was a multi-billionaire, and I learned so much in that experience. And what it comes down to, it doesn't care what you think. It doesn't care what you like. It doesn't matter. It matters what the market thinks, what the market wants, and the market will tell you whether your product or your service is good or bad.
Okay. This is, I want to keep talking to you, but I know that we're pressed for time. But there's a lot of stuff that you're doing when it comes, the word Palestinian, you've said it about 76 times already. And I just want to talk about, someone who has gone international, you didn't forget your home country. You're helping with youth empowerment, helping organizations train youth and develop them in innovation and business, in entrepreneurs, and now you're helping them with in Gaza with food, access to food and access to. How does that all come about? And this is a philanthropic side. You're not forced to do this. It's not. It may be misconstrued as CSR or PR or whatever, but is that what it is? Is this a marketing stunt so that people can know more about your name, or where is this? I'm sure. I'll wait for your answer before I say anything else. But where is is forgetting your roots? You're tied down to that a lot.
I'm not. I mean, for me, look, my philanthropy, and I'm on the board of ANERA, which is the largest U.S.-based aid organization that promotes and assists Palestinian refugees. And I'm also the chairman of ANERA Ventures, which is our for-profit arm. And Falafel Inc. does a lot of contributing, and I personally contribute. In the Hult Prize, we train 10,000 Palestinians every single year. Your question, is it a stunt? Is it marketing? It's not. Obviously, for me, I have a Hawiyah. I have Hawiyah to Daffa, I'm a Palestinian resident. I am treated as a second-class citizen when I try to cross into Palestine, and I have to go through the Israeli borders and the checkpoints, and I'm not allowed to go into Gaza. I'm not allowed to go into the Israeli parts, even though I'm an American. Imagine I have a U.S. passport, born and raised in America. I'm not allowed in Tel Aviv or any of the other Israeli cities because I'm Palestinian. Okay, so don't get me started on whether or not it's a marketing.
I'm a bit of a provocateur, so
So
I'm getting what I wanted, baby. This makes good TV.
That's fine. But here's the beauty. I don't think that people that have made it do enough, and I do everything that I can to promote my agenda. And is it strategic? Maybe, right? But I have a vision for what Palestine could be, and I don't care if people call it Israel, they call it Palestine, just as long as Palestinians have equal rights, have access to economic opportunity, have access to safety, have access to shelter, and have access to human dignity, right? That's all I care about. And I don't have any other agenda than that, right? And if that means that I have to bring, Chef Jose Andres to Gaza and to bring the Hult Prize to Palestine, and I have to train Palestinians, and I'm going to play my game. And that's what I think most people get wrong, is they play other people's games and agendas. And I just put an offer on some real estate 2 days ago. And the real estate agent called me back and she said, we have 4 other offers at, 1.5 million. And I had offered like, a little bit less than that on something that I wanted to buy. And I said, so? And she said, what do you mean? And I said, why are you calling me? She said, well, your offer was lower than their offer. And I said, let me tell you something, Susan. I play my game, right? I think it's worth this. If you want to sell it to me at that price in these terms, I'll buy it. But make no mistake about it. Just because somebody else is in doesn't mean that's going to influence how I behave. And I've lived my entire life by that playbook. I play Ahmad Ashkar's game, right? It's my strategy. It's my plan. It's my business. I don't really give a flying, whatever about what anyone else is doing. And I think that's what I try to communicate to the young people out there. Be you, be yourself, and accomplish your North Star. And don't take no for an answer. And that's some of the most important things. And that's why I do what I do in Palestine.
Amazing answer. Thank you. But one more question from Facebook, and I think we can wrap it up, or I can ask you then to, we'll get closer to the time frame that we're allocated here. There's a general misconception that social impact businesses are only needed in struggling countries or in countries with poverty. Is that true? Is that a true misconception?
I'll put a question back to the audience.
Yeah.
By 2025, okay, which is like in 4 years, the first of $60 trillion will transfer in wealth from around the world. So like, to put this practically, like my parents and your parents and our grandparents and the audience members' grandparents will no longer be in this dunya. Their wealth will be controlled by people our age and younger. The wealth that they've left behind in bank accounts, companies, stocks. By 2060, 60 trillion will go from their generation to ours. By 2025, which is just 3 years away, 5 trillion will get transferred. This is the largest intergenerational wealth transfer in history, which means we control the money. Who is we? We are the generation that puts impact at the center, just what I told you before. Where 80% of us, millennials, those born between 82 and 94, prefer products which are impact aligned. Social enterprise creates products and services which are impact aligned. This statistic is not in just poor nations. This is global. So I ask you, caller, do you still think, now that you're equipped with some of this data, that the idea of social entrepreneurship is only something for developing nations? In the next decade, by 2030, 2031, okay, we will no longer have the word social entrepreneurship. It will be eliminated, because every form of entrepreneurship that will be viable in the marketplace will be impact centered, period. So this whole concept of, is it social, is it not? You won't even be able to put $1 in the bank unless your business is an impact centered business, once this wealth starts going to my people and not the existing generations. That's a fact.
That is a very...
Drop the mic, Ashkar.
Yeah,
drop the mic.
I don't know how to do that. How am I supposed to follow that up? It's like, it takes me back to the start when it's like, be patient, be patient. You put in a whole new meaning to my dad's statement of be patient. It's just like, literally,
my dad, another
hurry
quote,
up and die, people. That's basically what it is.
Look, they say, shada bitsawi lihya, right? That's
exactly.
it. That's the thing.
That's what it
One
is.
at a time, baby. One at a time.
Excuse me. It's I could carry on talking to you. I really can, and I hope that we get to chat again. Before we wrap up this episode of Swalif, is there anything that you want to say? Is there any information that you want to share? How they can?
I just want to. I want to encourage your audience to check out pursuitofimpact.org. My latest book comes out next month. Everything that I've discussed today is in it. It's pursuitofimpact.org. You can pre-register. Books will be out next month. And I want to thank the U.S. Embassy of Qatar, the State Department, and of course, you, Hamid, and your organization for hosting us and for all the support that you've given us at the Hult Prize and believing in youth and helping us fulfill our mission at the Hult Prize, which is very simple. And it's all about leading a generation to change the world. So I just want to thank everybody that's listened to us today. And I hope that at least something we've said will allow us to have had some impact on you and your own pursuits of impact.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. And I am constantly going to thank the U.S. Embassy for this collaboration. And for me, the whole idea of Swalif is so that I can have conversations with strangers from around the world who will leave an impact on me and anyone watching the show. And I believe that the conversation, as informal as it is the easiest way to have the social impact, if you will, because this is not scripted. This is not something that we, this is passion, and I believe that these kind of conversations do have the power to change the world as well. So
agree.
Thank you.
I couldn't agree more. And thank you to everybody. Love you guys. And thank you to Hult Prize Nation for following along as well.
We definitely will be in touch. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, everyone watching us on Instagram and on Facebook. We'll be back next month with another episode of Swalif. Hasta luego. Bye-bye. Ma'a salama. Bon nuit. Arrivederci. I don't know. Somebody out there might be speaking Italian. Who knows?